Lovely. We did it again. Good evening, everybody. My name is James Cater. Somebody's waving at me. Hello, Joe. Nice to see you. Joe Kane, everybody, Cathedral Appointments. Hello, Joe. Why are we waving at each other? I'm James Cater. I'm the chair of the Exeter Initiative for Science and Technology. We're doing something different this time. We're at Oxygen House. Thank you to everybody at Oxygen House. Thank you in advance to the chefs at Oxygen House. This is not a breakfast briefing. We're doing something a little bit different. There was one person in the room that got to sample the food before everybody else, and he told me it was the best vegetarian food he'd ever eaten. So I'm hoping that you enjoy. Too much or too little? Down, down. Is that better? Oh, me go up, microphone go down. Am I being too loud? Okay. No, you're not. Is that okay? Sarah is the boss. Sarah will be bossing the presenters at every opportunity. For those of you that were also at the Winslade event back in December, many reappearances, many friends' faces coming back, thank you very much. One of the things that Sarah did to me at the Winslade event was give me almost a heart attack as we had an unplanned break half the way through. And for anybody in the room that has either knows me, has worked with me, or done any of these crazy things with me, I like plans to go to time. So I'm expecting maybe just a little worry halfway through, Sarah. The last thing I'd like to say is that we are all on a journey. We're all on a journey from how we used to live to how we want to live in the future. Whether you're just starting to think about it, whether you're on that journey, or whether you're happy with where you are. Exist is about bringing global brands, national brands, and local brands together to listen to people that have been on a journey or are on a journey. One of the big differences that we've managed to achieve since the December event is the mix between public sector and private sector, which I'm really, really excited about. And half of our speakers are from the public sector, half of our speakers are from the private sector. And that drive through all lenses of diversity will continue as part of Exist's core tenets. Sarah said to me as I was about to start speaking, James, we are over time already. So with that, I will hand back to Sarah, who will be our person of ceremonies for the day, and I will speak to you all later. Enjoy the food, it smells lovely.
Thank you, James. Oops, sorry, thank you. Right, well, as James mentioned, I'm really, really good at timing, like really good at timing. I am really delighted as well to welcome you to Oxygen House, to Exist, and to our new Power Networks event. As some of you know, I have ADHD, recently diagnosed. This is a new thing for me. I have notes because otherwise everything will just disappear from my head, okay? So excuse me if I'm reading my notes, but this is why. All of the organisations who are presenting here today and who are present in the audience are somewhere on the road to net zero. It might be a board level objective. It could be something that you regularly measure. Could be a cultural aspiration. Perhaps it's towards becoming a BCorp company. But everyone here is actually somewhere on that journey. In this, which is our second Exist Leadership Series, we've brought together the global, national and local brands to share their journeys with us, their experiences and what they've learned to help and support our best practice as Exeter people and probably wider region as well. My job, I mean, goodness knows why it's my job, is to keep everybody on time and engaged. And I will endeavour to do this, but it will be in my style. I'll try not to scare James this time with the unscheduled breaks. We have sorry, there is James and I. Look at that, marvellous. And we've got, join the conversation, so if you're putting anything up on social media, please use the hashtags at Exist Exeter. We've got an interactive bit of presentation just before our break There'll be a QR code up on the slides to engage with that, so have your phones ready to do that one. And I think that's all I need to tell you. You've got your food, you're sorted. The first speaker this evening is also our host. Oxygen House is the home to the Oxygen Group of companies. They're an interesting mix of organisations, all with an aligned mission and vision. And it's an amazing space. I've never been over here before, so I am loving this space. I think it's brilliant. And it's really, really good to share it with you guys as well. I'm not going to steal Ben's thunder, other than to say that the people who work here are all unapologetic about their focus on carbon reduction. I'm going to hand over to Ben to let him set the scene for us, and I'm delighted to introduce Ben Bulger, Managing Director of Oxygen House. Yay.
Let's skip that. Let's just have that one. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome to Oxygen House, everyone, and thank you. Microphone, yeah. Thank you for all heading here this evening. Like I say, we don't often open up our doors, so it's quite incredible to see so many people in the building. So thank you, James, and as I've learned today, thank you, Todd, for making this happen. So I want to begin by posing the question: what is the point of being a sustainable business in an unsustainable world? So you're all smart people, so I'm sure I don't need to explain the importance of net zero targets. I don't need to explain that it's inevitable that 1.5 degrees by 2030 is going to be exceeded. I don't need to explain that we'll increasingly experience damage to marine life, biodiversity loss, increased flooding, wildfires, water shortages, food insecurity. And I know I don't need to mention to you that this is all because we're burning fossil fuels. We've got industrial pollution, deforestation, and agricultural emissions, because we all know this. So why is it we're still talking about net zero and that everybody is not on this journey? Because this is probably the most important thing for our planet that we could possibly be doing at the moment. And interestingly, today, I read that Shell investors voted 78% in favour of winding back their climate targets. So what are the conditions that we need to make this change? So leaders need a personal connection to this. Without that personal connection and being a leader in this, it won't happen. It will never feel serious enough unless you have that personal connection. Now, in a previous life, before I worked here at Oxygen House, I used to work for Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall, who's known for his campaigns. He's known for doorstepping people and getting in people's faces about these things. And I worked for him at a time when his influence was probably at his peak influence. And whilst I was working for him, I worked on a couple of campaigns where we were focusing on chicken and fish, which you will have none of on your plates this evening. And whilst doing these campaigns, I experienced how you can change customer behaviour. I experienced how you can change industry standards, and I experienced how this influenced wider policy. And that was one man campaigning. You know, it wasn't a business, it was one man with a mission to go and do it. But the problem is, that was one man with a mission, and then it's quickly lost. It didn't stick, right? This is one guy, he created his change, and then everything reverts to business as usual. Businesses have a unique opportunity to keep this going, do the what next. What is it that we can do now we've made this change? How can we keep this journey going? Having experienced that change, how can you create these tipping points in your own businesses? Where can you be the catalyst for change and create the conditions for consistent change and find the what next? So here I am at Oxygen House. Now, I arrived here having worked for Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall, thinking I was a change maker, thinking I was doing my good, changing, influencing the world, and having done my bit. And I was wrong. Oxygen House has fundamentally changed my perception of what sustainable really is. This business is inspirational. Around me, every day, I see the efforts to create change, and this is deep-rooted in our business. This is cultural. This is a gravity that's pulling people in, creating a density of change makers and innovators. And that is what I'm going to talk about now. So, how do you create that culture? How do you create that change in your business? So I can't talk on behalf of our group businesses because they all have their own leaders in that business. But what I can share is what I see around me. We have renewable energy being deployed at infrastructure levels, 20 gigawatts by 2030. We have conservation, regenerative agriculture, and a fresh approach to natural capital, which is happening the length and breadth of this country. We have education technology, which is reaching 2 million learners and mobilizing the minds of the next generation of problem solvers and innovators. And we have businesses that are helping shape low-carbon city infrastructures. And then around me, I have people in this room who are inspirational professionals that are making changes from their desks. They're sectoral changes that are global. So what we're doing is incredible, but it doesn't even scratch the surface. We've created this room of change makers, this business of change makers, but it's not enough. We need everybody in this room to be going off and being these change makers. So how do you create this? How do you create this culture these conditions for change and impact at scale in your business? Now, at Oxygen House, we have a simple mandate from our boards. Make the world a more sustainable place. That comes right from the top. Our leaders truly believe this. That is our purpose. That's what we're here for. We have a dual purpose in our business to provide great services, to provide great things to our group businesses, but it's underscored by be a change maker. Make the world a more sustainable place. And this leadership changes how the rest of our business reacts around it. It gives permission. It gives us a mission, and everybody in our business is now delivering that impact. But here at Oxygen House, unlike when I was working for Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, it sticks. It's something that's deep-rooted and integrated into our business. And that's the culture we create. Change the culture, change the world. And I'll thank my colleagues at the back for coming up with that line. We work on integrating sustainability into all areas of our business, and I mean all. The role of sustainability in our business is not abdicated to a department. It's not a single person's job. It's not a report that we get annually. It's not an ESG report that we take up to the board. It is everybody's responsibility in this business. We embed low carbon thinking into everything we do. Everything. And this is coupled with a curiosity of how we amplify this and affect others up and down our value chain, and how we create these ripples that come out of our business. We want everybody that walks through this door to go away and think a little bit different. And that's my mission tonight. We call this Keeling culture, and this is something that Matt and Sarah, who are sat at the back, would be happy to talk to you about if you want to find out more about what Keeling culture and how you put that into your business. This is leading cultural change through your people. History shows us that people are at the heart of any successful change, just like the campaigns that I spoke about with Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall. It was driven by the people demanding the change in the supermarkets. The supermarkets demanded the change in the policy. So if you want that to happen, you can facilitate your workforce to be environmentally aware and responsible. And in doing this, you'll close the widely acknowledged skills gap. You'll get your teams to smash through the green ceiling. Your incredible problem solvers, innovators and thinkers will be integrating decarbonisation into all of their decisions, thinking about how they impact their own decisions and how this will affect your business in future. This has to be good. If you can create the tipping point in this system, much like my campaigns about chicken and fish, by requesting the information out of your suppliers, volunteering this information back up in your supply chain, this data, this flow of data will create change. But you've got to want to do it. You've got to want to open source this data, and you've got to be inquisitive about finding it. Without it, we're in a stalemate. We're not moving on. And I know this isn't without its own barriers. You know, resourcing it is tricky. Financing it is a question. The knowledge in your teams might not be there. The tools to do it cost more money. You might not have them. But there is an opportunity cost, and you need the desire as leaders to drive this in your business. So what's the future? What's the call to action here? So assuming that everybody here is interested in a net zero journey, they're starting it, whether they're on it, then I want everybody to go away thinking a little different tonight. Talk to somebody in this room. Go away, make a change in your business, because that's what the power of this network is. That's why everyone's here. If you go away and nothing changes, there's no point in tonight. As Matt called it earlier, we want a party with a purpose, and you know, make sure that you enjoy everything here, but there is a purpose to this. And I think we need to get these minds behind this problem. Exeter has got some of the best minds, the best problem solvers in this sector. IPCC people at the university, I think we have more than any other university in the UK. So why are we not tapping into this? I don't know if there's anybody from the university here tonight. But you know, there's opportunity there to be working with these people and driving change in your business. So to answer my initial question, what's the point of being a sustainable business in an unsustainable world? You have ethical responsibility. You have long-term viability for your business. You'll meet consumer demand. There's economic benefits. You'll meet regulatory compliance, which Sam's going to talk about later. You'll have social impact, and you've got a global responsibility to be doing this. So you must change the culture, and you must change the world. That's it. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much, Ben. That's marvellous.
And by the way, this isn't factually correct. That was earlier today.
I guess.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of minutes. We've got about 3 minutes for questions. If anybody has any questions for Ben, then stick your hand up, and there's a microphone somewhere in the room, which will, at the back of, there we go, the microphone is over there, and the microphone will come to you.
Okay.
Any questions from anybody? And it's fine if you don't, we can move on. And you can ask questions later. We have a question, there we go. Thank you.
Some of the best ways to figure out what impact you are having is to be able to measure it. Are there any sort of insights or anything you can give on in exactly how you go about measuring it?
Glad to talk into this. Yeah, I mean, we measure almost too much. We're data geeks here. We measure everything through our finance systems. You have access to that information easily through your accounting systems, but we also measure everything down to how much waste we produce in our bins into 16 waste streams. So we go about collecting data in manual ways, automated ways. But we acknowledge that there is absolutely a need for business to have a simplified way to collect this data and report on it. And I don't think the system is out there yet that does this for everyone. So at the moment, it's laboured and hard, but essential.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yeah, there we go. We'll have another one. Thanks.
Maybe this is a can of worms, sorry. You talk about changing the culture, and we often have this debate as a board about shaping culture, kind of push versus pull factors. How do you balance saying what a culture should be so that it becomes what you want it to be versus allowing it to develop and taking the risk that it veers slightly off what you originally intended?
Yeah, in certain areas, we embed it into our business through policy and through how the business acts. That could be through some green incentives in our business. It could be where our pensions are invested. You know, there's those things that send a message to your people that you care about that. In other areas, we're unapologetic about what we expect from people and when they're in their positions. And you know, it doesn't happen overnight, but I kind of say it's a bit like working for Greenpeace. You don't walk through the door and not know what it is you're getting into, and you come work for Oxygen House, you know what it is you're getting into and what we're expecting from people. So, you know, like I say, we're unapologetic about it.
Have you found it's typically costs more to align to net zero, or has it generated any value for you?
Absolutely, it costs more, but you know that there's an investment in that says that we'll have a business in the future. Without that investment now, there is no business in the future. So, yes, it costs more, but you know that's the opportunity cost that is worth investing in.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Ben. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So, next in our lineup, we have Paul Barker. This event, the New Power Networks Road to Net Zero, could have been written to describe Ben's organisation, Paul's organisation, One Energy, which is now the Exeter Energy Network. Exeter Energy Network will be bringing a new low-carbon district heating network to Exeter, which is powered by heat recovered from the River Exe and supplied as cost-effective net zero energy to key organisations across the city. I'm going to hand over to Paul to talk to you more about that.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, James. And, well, those onion barges are fantastic, aren't they? So if there's any left on your table, if you just let me know at the end, I'll be taking them away. So, right. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the Exeter Energy Network. Let's Better? Okay, yeah, I am slightly on the tall side. Apologies for that. And what the Exeter Energy Network means for Exeter, what it means for the decarbonisation of the city, and the other benefits that the energy network will provide. So yeah, I'm Paul Barker, I'm the project director. I work for a company called One Energy, who deliver heat networks, and we're delivering the Exeter Energy Network. So what is the Exeter Energy Network? It's effectively a heat network. So, and a heat network is, rather than having individual gas boilers in your homes or your hang on a minute. There we go. Oh, that's better. That sounds good. Right. It doesn't care about that where that heat's coming from. So it could be from heat pumps. It could be from energy from waste. It could be from data centers. So it's future-proofed rather than going down a particular route of heat supply to your building. So rather than having a boiler in your office or home, you change that to a plate heat exchanger. I won't get too much into the technology, but it's been around a long time. If you go to places like Copenhagen, 95% of that city is on a heat network. And it's part of the reason why Copenhagen, by 2025, will meet their decarbonisation targets, and it's why we're behind in the UK. So, as Ben was talking about, why heat networks? It's because, it's got on the slide there, there's no planet B, and the moment our heat that is generated by burning fossil fuels, we can't do that anymore. 85% of our homes and offices are heated by gas boilers. So if we continue to do that, not only are we going to obviously have an impact on our carbon emissions, but there's also the air quality impact as well. So as a building owner, you've got some options here. You can stick with the status quo, which is carry on burning gas. Eventually, that's going to get expensive. And eventually, you won't be allowed to do that because we have to phase this out. So the alternatives are things like having individual solutions on your building. So that might be an air source heat pump or a ground source heat pump. They are definitely part of the future, and especially in low density towns and in rural areas. But for cities, heat networks are the future. And I would say that, wouldn't I? But the government are saying that, and it's because they've worked out, and people have worked out, it's the lowest cost of decarbonising cities. The alternative is every single building having an air source heat pump on its roof. That's going to cost a lot of money. So a heat network is really the future. So who is One Energy? So it's a relative new company, but it's set up focusing on delivering heat networks, but not just heat networks, low carbon and net zero heat networks. So we've got heat networks currently in construction in Bradford, but we're also working in Oxford and Milton Keynes and other parts of the city. But in terms of our funding, the majority of our fund is actually from a deep green investment pot, pension funds focusing on long-term sustainable energy projects. So in terms of a bit more detail in terms of the Exeter Energy Network, so in total, project cost is going to be around about £110 million for delivering the first phase of the heat network. 40 million of that is from grant funding we've already received from DESNZ. So that's from the Green Heat Network Fund, which is there to provide support, for heat networks with producing low carbon heat. And the rest is, as I say, is coming from our investment fund. So we've got an energy centre proposed near Marsh Barton Railway, and I'll come on to some bit more detail on that. And then the network will come out from there using generally the highway to connect buildings, and generally it's the new build and it's public and private sector where decarbonisation is important. So if you're a company and you're not interested in decarbonisation and you're looking for low-cost heat, don't come to us because we can't provide it. We can't. Heat networks and air source heat pumps, they can't compete with cheap gas. Because so if you're not interested in decarbonisation, don't come to us. If you are, please come to us because we are the alternative, the cheapest alternative. That's also resilient supply as well. So in terms of the energy centre, so we're hopefully going out to public consultation on this in July. So that energy centre that will provide all the heat for the heat network and all the buildings connected to it, we're focusing on taking the heat using water source heat pumps. So they will take heat out of the River Exe, about 2 or 3 degrees, comes out of the River Exe, goes through the heat pumps, and they say that a heat pump, is like a fridge in reverse. I can never really explain the technology, but basically it takes that 3 degrees and then it ramps it up to around 75, 80 degrees, and into the pipe work into your building. So you've got heat just as you would do with your gas boiler as now. So we're looking at installing 20 megawatts of water source heat pumps utilising the River Exe. We have got full peak and reserve gas boilers. That's because some of the customers that we're hoping to connect to is the hospital and the university and the college as well, and we need to provide a resilient supply as well. Ultimately, though, we will be looking to move away from not just being a low-carbon heat network, but a zero-carbon heat network. But we are talking about a reduction in carbon emissions around 75%, so a significant drop from the gas boilers that are installed at the moment. So the other benefit and the rationale where we are locating our energy centre is that you've got the energy from or the energy recovery facility at Marsh Barton. We can take waste heat from that building as well, but we're also looking at a data centre. So a lot of data centres, they produce a lot of waste heat. We can take that and then again put that into the network, providing that low and ultimately zero carbon heat. Part of what we're doing, because we are a decarbonising company, it's not just about decarbonisation though. We want to have an active and positive impact on the local environment as well. So in terms of biodiversity, for planning permission, we need to meet a 10% biodiversity net gain. We're going to double that. We're going to go 20%. So we're looking at whatever benefits we can provide to the local environment as well. So in terms of the network, it will be mostly utilising the highway, just like the gas mains do, water mains and electricity cables. So we do need to work, and we are working closely with Devon County Council, their highways teams, to make sure that we install the network with as little disruption as possible, and working with the local community to understand how we can time it so it reduces that disruption. As I said, in terms of potential customers, we're not ready at this point if you're an individual homeowner to provide you with heat, but if you're in the city centre, you've got an office, a hotel, we'd like to talk to you. But our first phase our focus is on the key public sector customers. Part of the reason is that they've got the big loads that we need to deliver what is a large infrastructure project for the city. This is a new utility. The other thing as well is they're the organisations with strong decarbonisation targets as well. So we're here to support them. And I think what's different about Exeter as well is that you've got here with the university, the hospital, RDUH, and Exeter College, the City Council and the County Council is a coalition of the willing to develop the heat network. So we're in a very fortunate position in Exeter to really deliver this heat network. So in terms of timeline, we received the funding from DESNZ last year, but as I said, planning permission we're hoping to go for this summer, and the first part of the network we're hoping also to install this summer or autumn as well, with heat being provided, that low carbon heat, to the first customers in 2026. Just a quick thing around the other benefits. So this is £110 million of investment going into the local economy. We are trying to use as many local companies to deliver this network as possible. So at the moment, we're using as many consultants on the design side. So our ecologist is GE, Exeter-based, a planning consultant, for example, also Exeter-based. So trying to maximise that funding we've got from government. And the other thing, and this is a part of our funding commitments that we've signed up to with DESNES, is around market transformation. So heat networks, probably quite a few of you today haven't maybe not really heard of what a heat network is. It needs to be front and centre to decarbonising heat in the UK. And what that means, it needs an industry that can deliver that. So we need to have new people coming into this sector. So we are already working, and one of our main contractors are already working with Exeter College on apprenticeship schemes, and there's already an apprentice from Exeter College working on heat networks, not on the Exeter scheme yet, but another One Energy scheme. So there's a real opportunity here for new green skills coming to Exeter. In terms of environmental benefits, the big thing obviously decarbonisation. So around 13,000 tonnes of CO2 per year we're saving. But I think the other big thing is around cleaner air, is that by taking out a lot of those gas boilers, we are removing significant amounts of particulates and NOx from the city as well. So there's those added benefits. So maybe you don't believe in climate change, but perhaps with air quality is your thing, this is one to hopefully float your boat. I think a key thing as well is that by us providing you with low carbon heat, and there's buildings in Exeter with low carbon heat, essentially means you don't have to do that. You don't have to look at individual air source heat pumps being retrofitted to your building. Pipework will come to you. We just take out your gas boiler, put in a plate heat exchanger, and then that heat will just flow through your building. Maybe some changes that need to be made, but generally that's about as much as you need to do. I think I'm nearly there because I've got about a minute left. Perfect timing. There we go. Last slide, which is basically if you've got a building, you're interested in decarbonising, you're in the city centre, please talk to us.
Steal that for a moment. Thank you, Paul. That's brilliant. We have got a whole 2 minutes for questions, and I can see 3 already. Tanya?
Well, I will start.
Microphone is with you.
Yeah, I'm Tanya from Question Zero. And I'm probably one of the few people in here who actually lived in Ukraine for all those years before I moved in here with the central heating systems like that. So how do you address the seasonal stuff? Because the summers in here are not always warm, and I can put the heating on when I want. And in the central system, well, at least back in the day, it was usually regulated, central on, central off. So it's something. Yeah,
so I guess we're definitely not as cold as Ukraine, but it can get cold. Yeah, so there's various technology we use. We have got the challenge we have is the peak. So we've got water source heat pumps, and actually the good thing about water source heat pumps is that the river temperature doesn't actually get that cold. So we're taking heat from there, and we can generally then serve the full heat even in the winter from water source heat pumps. But at the moment it's very peaky in terms of lows. When people turn up to their offices, they expect it to be a high temperature. So there's work we need to do with those buildings to try and reduce that peak. Another thing we're doing is, and we're looking on the site, is to have a very large thermal store. So overnight we'll be charging that thermal store, so that thermal store can provide that heat during the peak and during the winter.
Thank you, Paul. I'm afraid we have only got time for one more question. So the other question that was in that area over there, we'll have to do after, or in the break perhaps, if you can come and find Paul. Who was the next question that was? Oh, sorry, it's the lady here. That's right. Thank you.
Just interested to know what the planning legislation conversation is around this for new builds and commercials. Have they caught up with it? Is it ingrained in their thinking in terms of how planning applications will be dealt with in the future?
So planning is obviously done on the local planning authority. And Exeter City Council got a relatively strong policy, so that does require new development in a heat area to connect to heat networks. I used to work in Bristol. We had a really strong planning policy there, and it did drag some of the development community kicking and screaming into connecting to the heat network. But what is also coming is legislation, whether it's going to be delayed by what's happening at the moment with an election, which is heat zoning. So there will be zones across in the majority of cities where both new and existing buildings will eventually be required to connect. So that's some of the policy that's coming as well.
Thank you, Paul. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm going to be very, very cheeky, and in my actual day job, suggest we have a chat because we optimise pipeline infrastructure, and I've just seen pipes. So, right, unfortunately, our speaker from Exeter City Council hasn't been able to join us tonight because of a family funeral, which is sad, and we wish her well. But who we do have is Sam Preece, who will be here in just a second. It's really great to see so many of you here this evening who also attended our first Exist Leadership Series event in December at Winslade Manor. And that was on the subject of AI, machine learning and large language models. One of the key presenting organisations at that event was the global advisory firm PwC. And we had some great feedback about their input, so I'm delighted to confirm that PwC's commitment to our region and to Exist is still present. I'd like to introduce you to Sam Preece. He's PwC's partner for ESG in capital markets, sustainability reporting, energy transition and impact investment. And Sam's session, this is where the interactivity comes in. So there will be a QR code, get your phones at the ready, and there'll be voting and all sorts of exciting things. And Sam will lead you through that. Okay, here you go, Sam.
Thank you, and no pressure on me following my colleague who obviously did a wonderful job at your last session. And I'm not going to promise anything on excitement for the interactivity, but I think it's just, we're going to take the pulse on a few of the topics that I'm going to talk about in my session, to take a pulse on what you're experiencing. I'm going to just start with a bit of introduction to me. I'm 25 years as a sustainability professional. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a tax specialist. I'm not even an auditor. So in PwC, I'm quite an unusual animal. But what we're seeing is that ESG and sustainability is being built into everything that we do. So I think I'm going to give you, and I think when I spoke to James in advance, I sort of set myself a bit of a personal challenge, which was take what I see as one of the most boring and dull topics that I come across in my day job and share it with you and try and bring my passion and enthusiasm for net zero and transformation into that topic and show you how this topic can help engage and accelerate what you're doing in your work. And looking into the audience, I can see there's people with deep expertise in some of the things I'm talking about, so I'm going to keep it high level, let's say. So first of all, I'm just going to give a bit of a disclaimer, and the disclaimer is because we're auditors, so we're regulated, and Oxygen House is one of our clients in the audit space. So nothing I'm saying here is a recommendation or endorsement of any of the work of any of your organisations in the room. I have to say that from a legal point of view. But I'm going to just cover off a few things in this session, a bit of an introduction, done the disclaimer, and then I'm going to really talk about ESG and sustainability reporting. Now, this is the dull topic, potentially. But I'm going to give you a very high-level briefing of some of the things that are going on and how I think it is going to impact almost everybody in the room. I'm then going to do a Slido poll, the interactive piece, which we're going to get you to scan a QR code and answer a few very high-level questions. And then I'm going to do a bit of a summary on how I see, in the work that I'm doing, how I see regulations and reporting driving action, driving outcomes, and really giving confidence in you doing sustainable and impactful things in what you do day to day. I'm going to just interject with a bit of good news for Paul. We saved some onion bhajis on our table for you, so you're all right there. And the other bit of good news is, as PwC, we do lots of impactful work, and DESNZ is one of the investors in what Paul does, and we administer the fund for DESNZ. So we're really about getting stuff done as well as reporting and checking the facts on people's work. So just to sort of start off with, I've already talked about who I am, but my passion is about creating value from ESG and sustainability actions. So if you're doing the right thing, my job is to help you get the maximum recognition for that. Get money to do more, get money to accelerate what you're doing and really tell the story about the work that you're doing in a way that's verifiable by my audit colleagues and all of those who are checking, and to make sure that you're continuing to tell the best story that you possibly can. So I'm going to try and weave that through the messaging today. So to get into the technical bit, probably you're aware, but if you're not, there's a huge amount of new regulation around ESG and sustainability reporting. And there's regional standards, there's global standards, there's global best practices and voluntary codes. There's a huge amount of things. This is an incredibly simplified version of some of the things that are happening at the moment. European regulations interacting with international standards, US regulations, listed regulations. This is just a sort of snapshot illustration. One of my kind colleagues calls this the sort of Sam Preece hellscape of reporting. And it does kind of illustrate just the complexities that come into this. And I'm going to zoom in on one. Our European friends have got a regulation called CSRD, which is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is a standard which, this is going to be really challenging to make interesting. It's a European standard on reporting to set about getting comparability between disclosures on ESG and sustainability throughout businesses. And I'm just going to zoom in on that to give you a bit of a flavor of how deep and complex that is. The summary and headline for that, I would say, is think of everything that you do for financial reporting, for non-financial reporting. The depth, the quality, the assurance, it's the same thing. So what we're being asked to do is set up non-financial reporting and disclosures to a level of rigor that you're doing for financial reporting. And that's quite substantial. And I'll say this because I'm not in our audit business, but the regulators are predicting that your audit costs and assurance costs will go up by between 130% and 140% of your audit costs in your first year. So there's a lot of checking to be done around that as well. So this all sounds like terrible news for a person like me who's all about purpose and outcome. This is extra burden and extra bureaucracy. But I'm going to try and explain how I'm seeing this playing through in the businesses that I advise. But just to share a little bit more of the detail, I'm sharing these slides just to give you a bit of context, and I think you can have them afterwards. But the idea is to show some of the components of it. It's a set of technical standards, really deep sector-agnostic technical standards. There's some sector standards coming. So it's telling you exactly what you need to collect and how you need to collect it on a number of topics. And the central part is there's a framework there which sets out the scope of what you need to do, how it needs to be applied, how you need to apply it the first time, how you need to be assured around it. So it sounds a lot like accounting to me, and it's very, very prescriptive. Behind that is something called EU taxonomy, which gets into another level of dullness if you're not an accountant. And that's how you're allocating the activities that you're doing against a defined taxonomy, a set of regulations about how you're putting your money and how it's being allocated within your business. So super, super detailed. And again, doesn't really sound like it's adding a huge amount of value at first look. But what it does do is start bringing in more topics. So this slide here is really setting out some of the things. Previous regulations on the left-hand side, those coloured boxes are some of the topics that are really covered by previous reporting standards and regulations. Climate, everybody be aware of that. Inclusion and diversity, governance, modern slavery, financial materiality, those kind of topics. Within this CSRD regulation, it's expanding. It's going to cover more topics, and it's going to be looking at the impact on your business and the impact of your business on the rest of the world. So it's getting much, much bigger. And it's going to cover a whole range of different businesses. There's going to be a ramped up inclusion, but what I would say is it's going to be staged in terms of implementation. And I think what you might be thinking is not going to affect the majority of the people in the room. But what we're seeing is there's a requirement within this to undertake a materiality assessment, and we'll look all the way through your business, through the value chain of your business, and look from top to bottom. So investors are going to be asking those that they invest in, and they're going to be asking you to get that information from all of your customers and in the supply chain. So it's complicated and it's going to be extensive. It's going to be impacting most people because you're going to be, if you're not directly in scope for the regulation, you're going to be asked for the information at some point from customers and suppliers and investors. So I'm just going to do a quick Slido. So this is the interactive bit. So if you want to get out your phones and take this QR code, it should direct you then to a question page or a series of question pages. And we're just going to get a sense of whether these kind of requests for reporting information are impacting you or not. And we will see where we're at. I tend to work with large private businesses, and they are almost, without exception, impacted by extra reporting requirements and regulations. Okay, so everybody there? Whilst people are scanning, I think what I'm just going to say at the end will hopefully give you some insights in terms of how to create value from reporting. Okay, we're going to move on to the questions. So this is really just a general question of where you're at with sustainability reporting. So series of options. If you want to just answer where you're at, we'll give it a couple of minutes, just to get a flavour of where people are at. What I'm seeing out there, there's a real range. People who've done nothing and getting started, people who are quite mature and have got some really quantified data that they're building into their business processes. So I think we'll probably draw it there, but you can see, I would say probably the majority of people that I'm coming across are on that starting step and starting to build things up. And I was having a conversation with Miles beforehand. We're seeing the need for an ecosystem of support from investors down through small businesses, and there's a role to play for government in that as well. So I think some of the work we're doing is supporting as funds get deployed into really exciting projects to support on that. How do you actually quantify and report some of these things? I always give this sort of example of sometimes the most impactful businesses are the worst at reporting. Just because intrinsically they do good stuff and they can point to the good things that they're doing. And I'm not saying that's you, Paul, but getting it right will help you access more money and get to a better position. So we'll move to the second question. So are you getting information requests on ESG? Are they reducing? Are they increasing? Are they staying steady? Are you seeing more things that you're being asked to do? Reason for asking this is a majority of my clients are seeing a massive increase. A client last week reported 42 requests in a week on extra information and data on ESG and sustainability topics. Lots of the questions are the same. Lots of the questions are the same information request, but with different formats. So there's a lot of inconsistency. This is one of the things that the regulations will do. It will help drive consistency, so you'll get lots of requests, but they'll probably, hopefully, all be very similar or the same. So we're seeing an increase overall. And the final question is, are you starting to use ESG reporting technology? Are you using a platform? Are you using your existing business systems to collect information and data? Is this something that you're thinking about? I would say one of my key recommendations is to start thinking about that. Reason for that is I don't want any of the smart people in this room or in your teams to be wasting time on collecting data if a system or a bit of technology can do that for you. So that's sort of an early thing that you can get in place, and it will help with the robustness, it will help with any requests that you're getting, and if you're a bigger business subject to assurance, it will help with that assurance too. So a couple of bits of polls, and thank you for participating in that. Just in the last couple of minutes, I'm just going to really then convert that really quite dry subject into something that's a bit more value-adding and talk about value creation. So again, these are for you to take away. On the right-hand side, you're getting this regulatory demand. There's mandatory activities that need to take place, and there's a real involving level of complexity around that. So that's all the negative regulatory side of it. On the orange side, the value creation, clearly you're going to be able to accelerate your ESG strategy. What you're going to do is going to accelerate. You're going to be able to benchmark against others and prove what you're doing. And that should ultimately give you better access to markets. Capital markets to get more money to do what you're doing, money from incentives and tax incentives that will help you accelerate what you're doing and get investment. It will also enhance your risk assessment, so looking at the not only the positive aspects of what you're doing, but look at the potential negative and downside risks and control those. And ultimately, you'll build trust with your stakeholders. Right at the start, that conversation about culture. I think culture is everything for me, but having a solid, robust sustainability reporting and data-led background will help you build and reinforce that culture. I think that's really critical. So key messages are huge amounts of regulation coming. Expect to be getting more data requests from investors, customers, peers in the sector coming through, but embrace it. Take it as an opportunity to demonstrate the good things that you're doing. Take it as an opportunity to have some transparency. If you're doing the right things, reporting should be your friend in that journey. So please do think positively about sustainability and ESG reporting requests as they come to you. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. That's brilliant. If you want to stay put for a sec, we have got a couple of minutes, I think, that we can do some questions. Tanya, you have asked one already, so I'm going to see if somebody else can. Yes, there we go. And then if there's only one, then we'll come back to you. Is that okay?
Thank you. Absolutely fascinating and inspirational. So much appreciated. You talked about materiality assessment as being that sort of bedrock before you start. Can you talk a bit about what a materiality assessment would look like for a business in this room?
Yeah, so I'm gonna sort of go. There's probably one thing below. Like, I'm a geologist, so below the bedrock, wherever that is in the Earth structure, scoping. So find out what you need to do first. That's the first step in this journey. Materiality then is really understanding what things are material to your business in this area. And it's a fantastic way to streamline what you're doing. So it's a structured process within much of the regulations. There's protocols for how you do it. But really, I'd describe it when I go and talk to teams like businesses, like leadership teams, is getting the core components of what matters to you as a business and what matters to your customers and stakeholders. Really getting zoomed in on those things. So that's a materiality assessment. And it allows you to document and direct your strategy based on those topics. And critically, it allows you to be very confident about not talking about things that aren't material to your business. So yeah, I would say absolutely the first thing to do would be, complete that materiality work.
Marvellous, thank you. I am going to keep us very, very much on time. Tanya, go and find Sam in a minute in the break. Is that okay? Thank you. James is going to be so impressed with me because I've remembered there's a break now. We'll be sticking to that. Before I do let you go, we do have a special sponsor here for tonight. So Prosper, who are at the very back of the room, their stand is back there. They have government funding for Exeter-based businesses to support the net zero journey that you're on. So Neil is in the room somewhere. Neil, there you go, at the very back waving. Do go and talk to him either today, later on after the next sort of lot of sessions. Get a business card from him and have a chat to him if that would be of use to you. We've got a 15-minute break. Please come back by 7:15. If you can get back slightly beforehand, that would be even better. I'm being told to do that, I think. There you go. Look, 15-minute break. It says so on there. So I'll leave you to have a break. Enjoy the food. Thank you very much. Talk to you in a minute. those at the back of the room, are you coming back to your tables or? Thank you very much. Right, we will crack on, I think. So, our next speaker is Catalina Fuentes Benitez. Ahead of these events, we have lots and lots of conversations with different organisations and individuals about who's presenting. And for those that want to know more about this, please do listen to the latest X-Radio podcast of Devon People. And James is doing that one, and he's talking about how and why we bring the events to the city and to the region. One of the most common questions that we've had about our next presenting organisation is how can an airline achieve net zero objectives? Well, we aim to provide these answers. We don't, Catalina does. So Catalina is here to tell us about that. She is the legal advisor on ESG for EasyJet. Lindsay Ratcliffe of Knights is going to tell you a little bit more about Catalina. You are, before Catalina starts.
Hello, I feel like I've got the easiest job in the room just to introduce Catalina, who has already been introduced. But the reason I want to say it, because actually that is quite a challenging question on aviation. And I just wanted to set the context because obviously the speakers that have gone before have been fantastic, all very ethical businesses. But aviation is obviously a huge contributor to our economy. And it's, it obviously enables mobility and it allows us to travel and have experiences, but it also allows us to obviously ship goods and services, and it, obviously creates huge opportunities. And in one respect, the answer might be to stop flying, but obviously that's not going to happen. But aviation, I work quite closely, so I should just say, sorry, I'm a client service director at Knights. We are the largest UK regional legal services business. We have offices in Exeter, but we also have offices across the country. And my role within the business is to work with our large corporate clients, and I also work very closely with our aviation team, including clients like EasyJet and Rolls-Royce. And so aviation is I'm quite passionate about aviation, but also in the same respect, I also work with lots of our clients on our ESG strategies. And I'm very conscious, obviously, that we are suppliers to those clients in their supply chain, and from a leadership perspective in our own business, but also working with those clients, this event is fascinating. But in terms of aviation, obviously, in the past century, just over a century, the industry has, we've learnt to fly. We've learnt to fly faster and quicker and heavier aircraft. And it's always been at the forefront of innovation. And obviously, aviation, as I mentioned, has a significant impact on social and economic development in a region and contributes hugely to the economy and also creates millions of jobs. But it creates huge concerns around sustainability, and not least as the demand continues to increase and is set to double in the next 30 years. The question of how we achieve it in a responsible and sustainable way is not an easy one, and decarbonising aviation and achieving net zero by 2050 clearly isn't easy. However, innovation in technology is starting to happen, and EasyJet very much leading the way and taking responsibility to obviously minimise the impact of their flights. And they take it very seriously, both by reducing their carbon emissions today, but also investing in zero carbon emission solutions for the future. They're also collaborating with partners across the industry, such as Rolls-Royce, to accelerate hydrogen combustion engine technology, and with Airbus to develop the world's first zero-emission commercial aircraft, as well as supporting development of carbon-neutral technology through carbon capture. So I think I'll invite Catalina up, and she can talk about obviously how they are doing that and some practical steps. And I would mention that Catalina is a lawyer, so let's just bear in mind that she's, in terms of the limits of what she might be able to answer in relation to those questions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Lindsay and Sarah. Right, so just to echo what Lindsay was saying, there's definitely a challenge with aviation, and we're very conscious about that. But I also think that there are ways in which sustainability and business success go hand in hand. And that is what I see at EasyJet, for example, as a value-driven company. It's about efficiencies and reducing costs. For example, reducing the cost of fuel, which also reduces the impact on the environment. So I think there are many ways in which there can be a reinforcing effect. And I will discuss that in a bit. But actually, the topic of this conversation is about how you can improve your performance and sustainability by looking at your structure. So if you only remember one thing about this presentation, I think that if you want to improve your performance, you need to look at the way you structure sustainability. And I think it doesn't matter where you are on that journey, it will always be useful. And what do I mean by looking at your structure? I mean, who's accountable for it? Who delivers on it? What does the board review on sustainability? And what does management get on sustainability as well? And the reason why I think this is important is because if you don't have a clear goal in sight and your structure is not set up to give you that objective, then you're going to go around in circles, and either you're not going to achieve the objective or you're going to be very inefficient in the way you do that. So what I will discuss briefly is first understanding the why, what is the driver behind your sustainability journey, then the what, what's your priority, and Sam discussed it a bit before, this thing about materiality assessments, and then lastly, the how, some insights as well on what we've learned, and some examples from EasyJet. So I don't think in this kind of event I need to convince you why it makes sense to start this journey. But I do think that it's very important that everyone in the organization has clarity on what that reason is. I often find, especially before I was working on a consultancy firm, there's a mismatch between the ambition level of the board and that of management. And it doesn't matter what that is, but it has to be consistent so that everyone follows the same path. And it's usually the boards that are more ambitious than management. Before it used to be the reverse. So what we see here is that sustainability, as you all know, can be a risk and an opportunity. If you see it as a risk, it could be a way of protecting your company from present risk, for example, regulatory enforcement, or future risk, as a way of ensuring the survival of your company or your industry. But also it can be an opportunity in a way of differentiating yourself from competitors, especially in products that have little differentiation in itself, or enter into newer market segments. And in these cases, sustainability will be your strategy. There won't be a separate strategy between the corporate strategy and the ESG strategy. So the relevance of this, the practical relevance of this, is that will determine how much risk you're willing to accept and how many resources you want to allocate on it, especially if you see it as an opportunity. And this is linked to the ambition level, which we all see here. So the main question is, do you want to lead, do you want to compete, or do you want to comply? Usually, if you see sustainability as an opportunity, you will want to lead. But regardless of where you're at, the baseline will always be the regulatory requirements. I think Sam mentioned it before, but that's kind of the edges of the puzzle. You need to understand what you have to comply with at the beginning. Then, on top of that, if you want to compete, you'll have to determine first who do you want to compete with, who are your peers, and then see what other practices are. If that's your situation, then you'll mostly be a follower. You look what they do and try to be at least as good as they are. However, if you want to lead, you will have to be, I think Ben mentioned it, the catalyst for change. You'll have to be the first off in many cases. To give you an example, at EasyJet, for example, innovation and technology is seen as an opportunity for us, especially on hydrogen-powered airplanes, because they will be more especially feasible for short-haul flights, which EasyJet does. So in that front, we've done a lot of firsts. As Lindsay was saying, we worked with Rolls-Royce, and we set the world first of having an airplane engine run on green hydrogen. We also had the first test in a UK airport of refueling of green hydrogen. That was at Bristol. And we created Hydrogen in Aviation Alliance that helps the government identify what infrastructure support we need to be able to fly on hydrogen. Although, of course, this will come, we're expecting this hydrogen planes to come around 2035 onwards, but that's where we're aiming at. And in the meantime, we're trying to improve our operational efficiencies and working on renewing our fleet, which are less emitters, and also using sustainable aviation fuel. So, just to go back to this topic then. Of course, you may have different ambition levels depending on the topic. You may not want to lead on everything, but on some areas you will. So it's important to understand what are your priorities. And that's what leads us to the materiality assessment that we're discussing. So that helps you understand your priorities. I'm not going to repeat all this, but the main thing is that you need to understand who are the people that you want to discuss with. An important one will be your customers, but also your shareholders, depending on the type that you have, and your customers. And you can do a simple financial materiality, so what affects your financial, or a double materiality, in which you also consider, as the EU regulation asks, what is the impact that your company has on the planet and the people. In the case of EasyJet, for example, as an airline, safety is the #1 concern, so that's right at the top. And then climate, of course, because of the emissions of burning kerosene. And lastly, data privacy and security, which as a data-driven company are very important. We also identified some opportunities. One of them I mentioned already, the technological innovation. The other one is sustainable travel and tourism, which I think can also be a differentiating factor. And lastly, inclusion and diversity, because that reflects our customer base, but also it's a way of retaining talent. So here, we're gonna go through the how you do this. Of course, there's not one right way to do it, and it will very much depend on what you want to achieve and what is your organization like, especially the size, how many committees you have already, how advanced on the way you are on that journey, and your ambition level. But here's an example of EasyJet. We have what we call a fully integrated sustainability responsibility at the board. So it means that we don't have a separate committee on it, but it's the board that is responsible for it, as if it were the business strategy. Everyone is responsible for it. And then the committees, each of them has some responsibility on sustainability. The board is the one that approves the strategy and receives updates at least twice a year on it from our head of sustainability. Then below the board, we have an executive committee, which we call the Airline Management Board, or AMB, and a steering committee. Those look specifically at our net zero pathway, which is that end goal that we have, and that's what structures our framework, which is, by the way, to have a 35% reduction in our carbon emissions by 2035, and it has been validated by the Science Based Target Initiative, which is the credential, and also it was the first low-cost airline to have that credential. So then we have the executive committee and the sustainability committee that they have sponsors from the different members sponsor different topics, so that they means that they're overall responsible for different areas. And then below that, we have working groups on environmental, social, and governance matters reporting to them. So we make sure that all the groundwork is done by the working groups, and then the management committees have a more strategic oversight. Okay. So here are some of the lessons that I think you can take away, or that I've learned in the past. As I was saying, there's no one size fits all in terms of organization, but you have to make sure that you have that direction from the board of what you want to achieve, and that it's very consistent across the organization. Then what is crucial? What is crucial is to have that senior management buy-in. And that's how we do it at EasyJet, having sponsors on it. So people specifically responsible for the overall success of that area. And that is coupled with risk owners. So once you identified your material topics, you have to have an owner for each of them to ensure that you know who's following the topic. Then sustainability, or ESG, as you know, has fragmented ownership. So that means that information is usually piecemeal. And you have to find ways in which you facilitate this information sharing. One of the ways that you do that is by having people that sit on several committees, or having a role like mine that aggregates information from different sources. Then another important topic, as I was saying before, is it's really important that you give autonomy to the working groups. And for two main reasons. First of all, because it's more efficient in terms of resources, but also because it's better in terms of decision making. Usually people that are closer to the ground can make better decisions than people that are not in the everyday work of it. Then, as I was saying, as someone mentioned before, I think it was Ben, the importance of being very data-driven, because what gets measured gets done, but also the regulations such as CSRD that someone was mentioning is going that way. And investors also want to see that, because that's what allows them to compare information. And then lastly, it's simplifying. If you want a process or a structure to be followed, just cut it to the bone and see what's really core, and then only keep that.
Thank you, Catalina. That was fantastic. Thank you. Being a stickler for time, as I am, I'm going to let you go and sit back down again. If you've got any questions for Catalina, and I'm really, really sure you have, and I'm really, really sorry not to do them right now, but if you do have questions for Catalina, I think catch her afterwards, please, if that's okay. Right, so when we think about the design of these events, we not only like to bring the global, national and local brands together to share their experiences and their best practices with you, but we also like to balance that between the conversations with both private and public sectors, which is what James talked about earlier. With devolution very much to the fore in our region, I'm excited to have thought leaders from many levels of regional government here, where their organisations, which do actually support all of us, are on their journey to net zero. Andy Wood heads up the Growth and Development and Prosperity Service at East Devon District Council. His work combines a range of expertise, including habitat mitigation, infrastructure delivery, and economic development. They've got a strong partnership ethos, and they focus on delivering major projects. And the team works across the district to secure clean and inclusive growth from within the outstanding natural environment that we have in Devon, which we're really, really lucky to have. Andy, do you want to come up and take to the stand? There we go.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. A couple of things to share with you up front. Number one is I was born on the 4th of July. Part of my responsibilities at the council is to help supervise the election counts. So I will be pulling an all-nighter that evening, not quite the one I was intending, but hey-ho. Second thing to say is I started at counts about 14 years ago, and it was interesting just coming here today. One of my first memories, I think it was the first week I was there, was wandering up the slip road of Junction 29. It was closed because the County Council done a fantastic job, and we're just about to crane in the new Red Haze, the blue bridge that goes across the M5. Loads of work went into that, really strategic and far-sighted to create a new cycleway and pedestrian bridge. Shortly followed thereafter by headlines in the local press about the bridge to nowhere. For me, really frustrating, given all the time and work that went into that from colleagues. But I was hoping today just to talk you through exactly what's happened after that period, really. So I was going to talk about the enterprise zone designation and about clean growth. And this is the area I'm going to talk about, which is this corridor between literally just the other side of the M5, the A30, the M5, the South Western Railway, so the Exeter Waterloo line as well. And that's a really key major growth corridor from my perspective. 12,000 homes, about 4 million square feet of new commercial space as well, all subject to an enterprise zone designation, which includes the science park. And our vision for that, which was produced, we reset that a couple of years ago in conjunction with the County Council about really how do we decouple growth from carbon emissions, and that's the, if you like, the clean growth element to it, and how do we redefine how we work, how we live, and how do we utilise some of those aspects like energy, and I'll talk about networks in different ways, including transport and green infrastructure, but how do we get to zero carbon placemaking in terms of how that corridor is going to look over time. So the first aspect to that from my perspective is the science park, which has grown since the first building in 2015. Now about 700 jobs on site, and for me a real wellspring, if you like, of new net zero business, really at the cutting edge of that transition to a low carbon economy. Also some fantastic institutions mentioned, I think by Ben in opening, around the role of the university. So there is the Centre for Future Clean Mobility at the university, centred on the science park as well. So real source of expertise there to help that transition. The second one was around building decarbonisation. It may look a bit odd, but this is what's known as a heat map. I'm conscious Paul's spoken about One Energy already. We already have 2 district heating networks. You may not know that there are 6,000 homes, literally just on the other side of here, going across the M5, powered by or heated by district heating networks. Also serving 3 commercial sites as well. Currently gas-fired, but obviously the challenge to transition those to something more sustainable going forward. Doesn't have to be district heating. You've probably seen this building going up, which is the new net zero Zeal Hotel at the Science Park. It will generate more electricity than it consumes. Other aspects for me is around home. So this is Cranbrook. A freestanding new town, probably about 4 kilometres that way. And the reason it's there is because of the railway line, the new station that was put there, about 100,000 new homes, 100,000 new homes, goodness, 100,000 journeys a year taken from that station, part of the Devon Metro concept. Great work again from the County Council. About 3,500 homes now built and occupied. Now going up to 8,000, our policy is for net zero for those extra 4,500 homes, and with a requirement to connect to district heating as well. I'd like to say this is an ordinary scene at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning in terms of the commute from Cranbrook. It was actually taken at the Tour of Britain start event in Cranbrook, but the fact that active travel has been, if you like, plumbed in for the infrastructure for cycling and walking in the town, and how you can access services, including new jobs just down the road as well. So Sky Park really starting to develop now as a hub for office and industrial uses, all hopefully within very easy commuting distance of Cranbrook as well. Interesting with EasyJet and Catalina. Obviously, planes are part of that, but for me, a real challenge around Exeter airports. If you remember back to March 2020, Flybe just going into administration, 1,000 jobs going, and a real challenge, I think, for the airport to pivot and to look at what it could become. And I think there's a lot of that is now starting to happen and really pivoting towards thinking about the ground aspects of sustainability. Some really interesting trials starting to happen, including of hybrid electric flights, but how to make the ground handling aspect zero carbon as well. And just announced last week, in partnership with the CAA, is a new trial around a future flight innovation zone to really look at what's called advanced air mobility, so things like drones as well, and how that can lever the existing technical expertise like Exeter Aerospace, the repurposed Flybe Training Academy, the new, or not so new, but the Exeter College Future Skills Centre as well. A real, for me, again, a fantastic story around the potential around skills. And hydrogen was mentioned by Catalina. So we do have a proposal just come in for the hydrogen allocation round 2 for a new hydrogen hub, 10 megawatts, but hopefully with, as you can see, a source of green energy, generating green hydrogen to help with aviation, some of the HGVs you see around in terms of logistics as well. And it was mentioned in opening around the natural environment. For me, part of the challenge is how do we make sure that the built environment respects the quality of the natural environment as well. You can see the direction of growth of Exeter is very much eastwards. and we have a fantastic environment in which to accommodate, really large amounts of growth, really. And so we've been working now for 15 years on what's known as the Clyst Valley Regional Park, which is a new 6,000 acre, hopefully accessible area of green space, working with the likes of the National Trust. And we're just consulting this week, actually, on expanding that by another 15%. So pretty much 3/4 of the size of Exeter in terms of that area of actual green space, and how we can work, as I say, to really maximise the accessibility. Imagine being able to cycle from Darts Farm up to Killerton. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? And really building that network as well. And just bring right up to date, this is our first area. Within that, we've just acquired 25 acres of new green space, just looking to bring that forward as a new country park. A small contribution, but hopefully the front end of something much, much bigger. So just some quick conclusions. Very long-term programme. Hopefully the bridge to nowhere absolutely has loads of people going across it now. That point around networks, transport, energy and green. And finally, the emphasis on clean growth. How do we decouple economic growth from carbon emissions? Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic. It was really, really interesting to hear what's going on, what's coming up, and what you've done in the last 15 odd years. Have we got any questions? We do have time for questions this time. So, any questions for Andy? Somewhere. No, you can't sit down yet. Anybody? Maybe you can sit down. Maybe you can. Thank you very much. That's cool. Cheers. Thank you. Right. So, so before we do move on to our final speaker, I would like to take a moment just to show the appreciation for the food that we've had tonight, because I think it's been absolutely brilliant. As James said, I think initially this is the first event that they've done within, that Oxford House have done within this space. So I think the kitchen have been absolutely superb. If you can show a bit of appreciation for that, that would be fantastic. Thanks very much. I think they're at the back, I think. Okay, so our final presenter of the evening brings us back to the start of our journey tonight. Jamie Hulland is from Devon District Council and is a Deputy Director for Climate Change, Environment and Transport. He's got over 20 years' experience working in the transport strategy, both in the public and the private sectors. It looks after planning and delivery of vital infrastructure, accelerating housing and jobs growth across the county, and trials bold new measures to increase active travel in the city. Most recently, he's brought us the Devon Metro, including the Marsh Barton station in Exeter, and Andy's just alluded to the Devon Metro out towards the east. As our final speaker, Jamie will be sharing some of the emerging transport plans, ideas and challenges, and supporting a healthy and economically successful growing city region. If I can hand over to you, Wen.
Thank you very much. So I'm Devon County Council. So we work closely with districts all across the county, the 8 districts. And I'm going to start with a boast that I arrived at work today in a £350,000 vehicle with automatic doors and a personal driver. So I thought I'd start off with that boast, and that will come relevant as I go on. I'm also conscious of the last speech of the evening, and I'm sure you're full and wanting to go home soon. So I'll try and keep it upbeat as much as I can. So yeah, I'm going to talk through our strategy for Exeter, but it's much wider than that. It's all around the communities that around Exeter and how we keep the network moving, supporting economic growth, supporting healthier, active lifestyles, and importantly, delivering decarbonisation goals. Thought I'd share this slide. This is how transport use, daily transport use has changed since COVID. This is the first quarter of 2024. So you can see here that's the increase in commercial vehicles. So the orange lines there are your light vans, like the delivery drivers. So you can see how much of an increase that has. 10 to 20% increase since pre-COVID. And pretty much everything else is below that line. So car use is the first bar chart, and that's sort of about 10% down on daily use. I'm sure looking around, people saying, I don't believe it. I don't believe it's been gridlock out there, but that's what the stats are showing us. But I think importantly, and what I'll come on to is public transport in particular, rail, bus use has really dropped off and hasn't really recovered. And I think if we're really serious about decarbonising transport, we really need to find ways of getting people back onto that and using those modes. So our transport strategy, 3 key areas: greater places for people. So that's focusing very much on travel within Exeter. About 50% of work trips in the city are made within the city. And so a lot of those journeys are really short distance trips. Too many of those are being made by car. Fundamentally, and more of those journeys can be made walking and cycling, and that's where we're focusing on that. Greater connectivity is about that. How do we get people living outside the city in better? You've probably worked out if 50% inside the city are travelling to work, then outside we've got those rural market towns. That's a significant number. That's the second highest in the country for people travelling in from outside a city. So that's a big challenge. Rural areas, not everyone has got rail connections, not everyone's got bus connections. And the greater innovation bit is really, okay, if we can improve connectivity both inside and from outside, we also need to find ways of optimising, incentivising people to travel differently, and that's really about behavioural change and using lots of the wider intelligence around our region. So focusing on the walking, we've got lots of data. We use lots of that data to plan our walking and cycling links. Map on the left is our walking network. Exeter's got the 4th highest walking to work ratios in the country of all cities. And I think only Norwich is relevant in this. They're higher. Isles of Scilly I don't really count, and I don't count Westminster, so it's probably second. And then here, the map on the right is cycling trips. So we look at ward-to-ward movements. And the green areas are showing where we've got really high levels of cycling happening. That's where we know there's good connections, good networks. But you can see there's really high flows moving from just edge of city to the neighbouring ward. That's high car use being used on those. So we're using that to develop a network that looks at connecting city centre to our key sort of residential areas, our major employers, the university, the hospital, all the major employment areas around, and trying to make them better connected and a far more dense network of cycle improvements. So these are some of the schemes that we've been delivering recently, and some of them more controversial than others. But basically, we took advantage. We were brave. We had brave leadership during COVID, where we stopped up some of the routes around the city, and we reallocated that road space for walking and cycling to capture the benefits of the traffic reduction. So that, because I think if we'd let those vehicles come back, it would have been a real uphill battle. We trialled it. We were bold, and some of those have been made permanent. So massive changes, creating 4 kilometres of route from the edge of the city right into the city centre for a few tens of thousands rather than hundreds of thousands, because we were able to do it fairly cost effectively through a series of filters like the ones shown on the top right. We have got the higher quality stuff on the high volume roads where cyclists need to be protected. So again, a range of tools we're using. And Magdalen Road on the bottom left is a real success story. Bustling place, supporting business, people out in the sunshine, enjoying that cafe culture which we wanted to create on that. And despite all the complaints we had in the lead up, it seems that all of those complaints have gone now that it's open. So that's been really encouraging. But it hasn't been easy. And this is where we need the wider support to actually say that some of these things are worth doing. And yes, we as institutions around the city are up for these changes and making that voice heard. We just talked about that Devon Metro. In Devon, we've, over the last 10 years, about £300 million worth of investment in the rail network, and that's come through really breaking down those difficult relationships with the rail industry, it's fair to say. Network Rail, I think we've been on a journey with them, and that partnership working's now really good, and the train operating companies as well. And we've been able to secure significant funds. 3 stations since 2015 delivered, a new railway line opened from Oakhampton, and we're building another station at Oakhampton currently, or about to start later this year. So a real success story in really catching that rural catchment and getting them into the city sooner. Cranbrook Station, big, massive car park, 11-minute journey into the centre of the city. You can't get in quicker than that. So please, make use of this station and those fast journey times if you want to get around the city. And I think really making people aware of these options is really important. But this is the slide I was talking about. This is my £350,000 vehicle that I arrived at work in. We really need to change that opinion of buses and bus travel. Anyone who went to the county show at the weekend may have seen the Devon bus. Anyone see the Devon bus? Anyone go to the county show? Our ambition here is to really transform that, have a clear brand, clear identity, modern vehicles, attractive, giving you backed up with good information, affordable fares, and again, many people don't know about the £2 bus fare as well. These £2 bus fare has been going for ages. The last Chamber event I spoke at, there were a few people saying, I didn't know, only £2 to travel on a bus. That's pretty good value. So I think, we've got some work to do around, really kind of changing that appearance. £5.3 million Zebra zero emission bus fund from government means we're going to have electric buses for the first time in Exeter, and that's a massive step in the door. Once we've got that infrastructure in so that we can start running electric buses, then the plan is for us to keep expanding that network. So you've got 15 to 20 minute frequency bus between Cranbrook Sky Park, Science Park and the city centre, and we've got the park and ride services as well, really upgrading that passenger experience. Some people think buses smell of wet dog. They don't, and they won't be, and that we want to really kind of push that, that quality offer and get more people travelling by bus. The other things we're doing to again improve that, again thinking about the environment, we've got these bus stops with live living roofs, and we're also upgrading the passenger information systems. Really good quality stuff so that it's making it easier to travel by bus. I think the other thing to say is, we touched on devolution earlier. Devon and Torbay are now going to be a combined transport authority, and that really opens up opportunities. And I think through that and through the enhanced partnership, which we work with the bus operators, we've got Peter Knight here in the room today, that's where we've got a real opportunity to really push this and start rethinking about how our bus services. Do we want to have more direct services, express bus services, a bit like the Falcon, so that we're actually providing like shuttle services from Paynton right to Exeter Business Park, so that we're not weaving around the houses, which is inconvenient. It's not good use of time. So they're the sorts of things that we're certainly going to be exploring to, again, enhance that. But it does need your help. Earlier, Ben said we want change makers, and I guess that's what I'm calling for today, because we need business in the city to be working with your own organisations to get people to change their travel behaviour. Start thinking about some of these options, celebrating it. I mean, we're trying to make it easier by some of the improvements we've talked about, delivering the hard capital infrastructure, but Kevin Costner said, build it and they will come. That's not necessarily the case. We need more support, and we need you to be encouraging people to try something different. Try cycling once a week, and that might grow to 2 days a week. We're not saying ban using your car. We're talking about simple first steps. Get used to it, try it, you might like it, and you might do it again. You can work on the bus, you can work on the train. So they're the sorts of messages we need to be getting out there. And we want to make it social. We want to be sharing that. Social media at the moment is causing us a lot of grief on some of our schemes, and we're only getting the negative. I think we need to be having people celebrating some of these projects, saying, I did this, I tried it, it was great, and trying to get a bit more of that kind of traction in the community of the city and beyond. Incentivise, you know, that's a key thing. You know, we need to get people out of their cars, and we've got to sell the benefits of doing it. Clearly, the health benefits are huge in doing in active travel. And the other thing, I just sort of last slide really is about, it doesn't take a lot to free up the network. So I think we recognise people need to be driving around the city. We need deliveries doing their getting around as efficiently as possible. We've got tradespeople who have to use their vehicles. But only a small change actually frees up the network. Those percentage changes are the difference between school holidays and normal, you know, normal time. And I think most people's experience of driving in the holidays is that it's a lot easier. You've got really reliable times. That's only seeing sort of 10% reduction in the traffic. So if you think about your workforce and just that sort of small change, if we can get that happening across the city, people making small adjustments to how they travel, it can have a massive impact on the network, support growth, the economy, and a healthier city. And then you can read that and do what it says. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks, Jamie, that was fantastic. Have we got any questions for Jamie? I realise this is our last 5 minutes. Anything? Anybody? He wants to escape. Okay. Oh, look, there is one. There is a question. Thank you. You can't escape. Not yet.
Jamie, where you ended up was workforce engagement. What do you think is holding us back as businesses here in terms of getting our workforce engaged with what you've talked about?
I mean, one of the things that we did at Devon County Council overnight, and we've gone slack because since COVID things have changed and we've not gone back to what we were doing before. But overnight, Devon County Council said, we're going to stop you driving in 1 day a week. That was the first thing. So leave your car at home, you know, choose your day, and then that increased to 2 days a week. So that was like 40% reduction in traffic coming in to County Hall every day. So that's, I mean, there's some simple things that we could be doing. I think the message is, you know, I think a lot of people think selfishly, well, I need a car, or I need to do this for my business, whereas actually we've got, you know, or people find reasons why they can't do it. You know, I can't cycle, I can't do all these things, but it's for the greater good. If we just got a few people who can doing it, then we'll actually, you know, that will have the benefits. But yeah, sorry, that wasn't a very good answer actually. So sorry.
It's getting late. No, you've done well. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you go sit down. Thank you. Right. So finally then, I would like to thank all of our speakers one last time, and at the back of the table over here. And all of you as well for showing up on your net zero journey. It's so important to do it. Sorry, Tom. My lad's at the back there. He's 17. He's just on his first year of A-levels. It's him and his mates that are going to be having to look after this world once we've done our bit. So it's really important that we do this for them. I think probably a lot of us in the room have got kids, nephews, nieces, whatever. It's for them that we do this. I just want to do a couple more thank yous to One Voice Media for organising us all. They are brilliant. They keep us on our toes. I just stand up here. I wouldn't do what I'm told, but it's Lisa and her team that actually get us to this point. To BitPod as well for providing us with our tech and the exploding box at the front earlier on. Well done for sorting it out and getting us back on track. They also have been live streaming this and providing a recording on YouTube later. The Exist working group are brilliant. And finally, James, our chair, because he does keep us focused and he does keep us on point when I'm not at the front doing this. Thank you to Oxygen House and all of our sponsors, all on that slide there. do keep your eyes peeled for the next lot of events that are coming up through the Chamber and also through Exist. And then lastly, that is our link for the YouTube channel. If there's anything that you kind of feel you've missed, you need to go back over, please go and have a watch of it, share it with your friends, colleagues, family. And if you've got any questions for the speakers, then obviously you can get hold of everybody, I'd imagine, over LinkedIn, and you can go and have a chat to them then after the event. And I think that's it. James, did you want to say one last thing? You always want to say one last thing. I'm going to let you say one last thing.
Exist is the STEM, Science, Technology Initiative of Exeter Chamber. And there's a lot more to come before you have to listen to, I'm being told to move to my right. Do I speak into this one or this one? This one, right, okay. Stand on the cross. So I'm going to say something that I was told I was not allowed to say. So I'm going to announce the next Exist event, which will be Thursday, November the 7th. We're going to do something different again. You're all invited, but between now and the next Exist event, we have some other very different things. As I look around the room, we're all roughly in the same kind of age demographic. It's a little bit different from the AI and machine learning and large language model event that we held at Winslade on the 12th of December last year. It seems like a lifetime ago. There were a lot more younger people in the room because they were interested in AI and machine learning and large language models. One of the groundbreaking things that the Exeter Chamber is in the process of doing is building and launching the next generation. Next gen, if you want to call it. Whether you call it Gen Z, Gen Z, Next Gen, I like to think of them as the next future leaders of Greater Exeter, whether it be private sector or public sector, whether it be a global brand, a national brand, or a local brand. On the 30th of this month, Emma, is that right? 30th of this month? 30th of this month will be the first Exeter Chamber Next Generation event. You can see it on your socials, you can see it on the Exeter website, but that is about the next generation of business leaders, whether it be private or public sector, coming through the Exeter Chamber network. The next thing is it's party time. Did we get the slide up about the summer bash? Luckily, I have some notes here. Fantastic. So the summer bash, which is at the Exeter Cricket Club, 21st of June. Tickets are going fast. Great music, great sponsors, some of which the sponsors are in the room today. Get your ticket now, they're going very fast. And then the final thing, on the theme of net zero, our next Exeter Chamber Bites of Wisdom event. If anybody likes rum, especially net zero rum, the Two Drifters Bites of Wisdom event is on the 27th of September. So as ever, Exeter Chamber, Exist, Next Gen, Net Zero, rum. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the chefs. Thank you to the presenters. And thank you, Sarah.